What's up, Comic Book Nation? This is Russ Burlingame. We're coming to you live from San Diego Comic-Con 2018 with Mr. Scott Snyder.
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because you got the Batman Who Laughs coming at the same time as Jeff has 3 Jokers.
Yeah.
Is DC just going to rebrand everything to be purple and green?
No, well, the 3 Jokers story is something really special that Jeff and Jay Fabok have had in mind for a long time. So now that it's a black label, it has sort of the time and space to be what I think is going to be its best form. And so what we're doing with Batman Who Laughs is really central to what we're doing in Justice League and the stuff that we're building out of Justice League. So it's easily the darkest Batman story I've ever done, and I wanted to get back to my horror roots, and especially working with Jock, who he did Witches and Black Mirror, sort of a perfect fit. And so it's a piece of the story that I've been hoping to do since Metal, where he comes to Gotham and he brings a new Dark Knight with him. A Dark Knight I've been waiting to do for a while too. It's sort of a Punisher Batman, because all of these are Bruce's worst nightmares about himself. So this one is one that imagines that in the alley when Thomas and Martha are killed by Joe Chill drops the gun and young Bruce picks it up and does in Joe Chill, and that from that point forward becomes sort of a complete agent of lethal force and is entirely the deadliest version of Batman, or the deadliest person almost on Earth, because not only is he this incredible sort of weapon master, but Punisher, I love Punisher and have an idea for a Punisher story, but he's pretty broke a lot of the time, driving around in a van and all of that. Yeah. Bruce Wayne is a billionaire, so he has things, Wayne Enterprises stuff that just happens to be in the pipes and the electrical and anywhere. So he can get you no matter where you are. He can make your car drive off a bridge. So all of this is, and I gave this a lot of thought because it's a scary version of Bruce, but it's one that I got asked about a lot when I was on Batman. Why doesn't he kill the Joker? Why doesn't he kill, what if he just killed this one person? This is sort of the nightmare of letting that go and saying this is who he'd be if he began killing and got worse and worse and worse. So it really is the Batman Who Laughs coming here with sort of a really tremendous force of destruction and having a very particular plan. You start seeing these dead Bruce Waynes pop up around Gotham, and Bruce has to autopsy them himself, and I'm really proud of it. It brings in everybody, the Joker, Arkham, and all of this stuff, and it just gets darker and darker, and then what it sets up rolls into some other stuff. It feels standalone. You can pick it up and get a complete read like you did with Metal, but the same way in Metal, the breaking of the source wall kind of sets up everything in Justice League. This does have pieces that are going to roll forward, and what I would say to anybody watching out there, this is really part of a sort of a 2 to 3 year plan that we've had since Metal, where what we wanted to do is the things that happened in Metal affect No Justice, and No Justice sets up a lot of the stuff that we're doing now in the kind of New Justice group, the Justice League Odyssey, Justice League Dark, and this Batman Who Laughs story is a piece of that to set up something really big as we start to near next year Comic-Con, next year fall. So it's sort of my big soap opera love letter to the DCU. I mean, I was saying earlier to a friend, to Tom King, I was sort of congratulating him on his Eisner and Mitch, and then just talking about how this will be my 10th year at DC next year, and I've done so many things I never thought I'd get to do. And I'm not sure I don't know how many huge superhero things I have left. I mean, sometimes I felt that way in the past, and then I found one. But I want this one, if I'm doing Justice League, which to me is kind of the heart and soul of the DCU, I want it to be the biggest, most personal, sort of expansive, robust story that affects all corners, takes in all corners that I've ever done. Metal was that, but it was 6 issues, compressed, crazy guitar riff, comic book writing. This, I have the majesty and the grandeur available to me because I have 48 to 50 issues to do this story, even though each arc will feel standalone. The next arc we're doing is this big Aquaman, Wonder Woman story called Drowned Earth. It's about magic and divinity, and it's a lot of fun. It's sort of these ancient sea gods from planets that are suddenly unlocked because of the source wall come here to to basically drown the planet. So it's a lot of fun, and it's sort of a fish zombie epic. So I'm excited.
As you're talking about Justice League and you're talking about things getting bigger and bigger and bigger in scope, but staying personal, does a book like The Batman Who Laughs help you with that? Because it sounds to me like this new Dark Knight is almost subtle, because he's got Bruce's cunning and his methodical nature. Do you feel like you're almost telling two different planes of story at the same time?
Very much. Each one gives me a different angle. It's almost like a prismatic approach to the same story. The Batman Who Laughs, you know, what Batman is used to from the Joker is a sort of point he's trying to make, is a kind of theatrical showmanship leading to a sort of grand, this is why I'm right. The Batman Who Laughs to me is a much scarier character because he doesn't care about proving anything to anybody. He's literally just the guy who anything that could be posited as a threat, which is basically every living thing, he has 10 to 15 to 100 ways of killing, and he will kill anything that he thinks could pose him a threat. So he has Batman's strategy, his planning, all of it, and he has the evil of the Joker. He's sort of worse than either of them. You know, he's worse than the Joker, any villain there. So what that allows me to do is say, Bruce, what's happening in Justice League, and they'll separate enough that you don't have to be reading them both, but if you are, I think it'll help. What's happening in Justice League, the universe is headed this way, you know, everything is broken, it's beginning to die, doom is right, justice is wrong. You know, Bruce thinks when he goes into this story that this is about proving a point, and that's the scariest thing, I think, ultimately, is what the Batman Who Laughs knows, is that's his weakness, his Achilles heel is Bruce is always trying to prove the point in some ways that we should be better than we are, that when you add up the clues to a case, you'll get a reasonable, you'll figure out why this happened and you can prevent it next time. And the Batman Who Laughs is like, I have nothing to prove, I'm just here to do something awful, and that's it. So you can't beat me. So it brings in a lot of really fun Gotham lore from the past, from now, but it's something I've been waiting to do for a bit, because I barely got to use that character in Metal, and he's going to play a big role in what we have planned. So I'm excited, and very excited for what we have on Justice League too.
With Justice League, it's funny because Metal expanded the size and shape of the DC multiverse by introducing a dark multiverse. With Justice League, you seem to be expanding kind of the spiritual and metaphysical DC universe by introducing the new forces and the new lanterns and things. Is there a point where things get so big that they start to collapse?
Well, no. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I think the idea is to show how they all work together. There's a real plan for that. And with issues 13, 14, 15, they're all about, spoiler, but Martian Manhunter, Jon Stewart, and Kendra, Hawkgirl, finding those answers in a really unlikely place. And the answers are about why are there, if there are 7 sort of positive forces that are some of the tenets that govern the universe, one being the still force, one being the emotional spectrum, one being sort of the forces of magic and divinity, and all of those things that kind of have corollaries in these heroes. Why does the breaking of the source wall suddenly allow for these negative forces, the other sides of those same forces, to suddenly be accessible? What does that mean? What is the code? Why did that happen? And is the answer something in the Dark Multiverse? Is all of it about how the Dark Multiverse balances the multiverse itself, the same way these 7 positive forces have a balance in the 7 negative forces? And is there a way to wrestle one from the other? So without giving too much away in terms of where we're headed as a map, all of that stuff comes into play by winter, spring of the end of this year into next year. They start to really understand that the multiverse itself has a design that was fixed to it, and because it broke before it evolved to what it was supposed to be, the story becomes a race against the Legion of Doom to either make it what it should have aspired to become as this beautiful, divine, almost kind of machine of life, or this weapon of death. And so it becomes this giant Justice Doom war as we go forward. And arc by arc, though, we wanted to focus on 2 characters at a time, show their relationships, expand their mythology. So the first arc really is Flash and Green Lantern. The second arc is Aquaman, Wonder Woman. The third arc is Martian Manhunter and Kendra. And the arc after that, which I'm working on now with Jorge, is the Sixth Dimension, has to do with Superman and Batman. So, and deals with some of the Batman Who Laughs stuff. So all of it is sort of, we want it to feel contained, we want it to feel emotional, and we want it to feel streamlined. But you're right. I mean, I want it also to feel packed to the brim with this giant sense of scope and consequence. And so there's no more, once the 7 forces, the 7 forces, the Arc Mall, we're not building anything new post post these kind of, as we explain these kind of 7 forces. From there, everything just sort of is about how do we either fix the multiverse or just sink this life raft that has a hole in it. So it's a huge, big cosmic story. I had a lot of fun talking to Grant Morrison about it and other writers from DC. And, it's my baby. I'm really proud of it. I'm really excited about it. And I honestly, it's the most fun I've had at DC. That time from working on Metal to now has been golden. I love working with Greg and working with him we're working on our last Batman story now for Black Label. But all of it is just, DC's been incredibly kind. I feel like they're like the parents that gave me the keys to the car and just let me drive it anywhere. And I'm trying to be really responsible and giving it my all, but at the same time, trying to go places that I haven't gone before, creatively and as, a shepherd for the characters that I am lucky enough to work with.